The fluorescent lights hummed, casting a sterile glow over the empty platform. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the occasional distant rumble of a passing train. Detective Riya Kapoor tapped her fingers impatiently against the metal table, the rhythmic sound echoing in the small, dimly lit room. Her eyes were glued to the grainy security footage, searching for any clue that might have been missed. 2:37 a.m. The time of death. It was a detail that haunted her thoughts. The station was deserted, save for a lone figure pacing nervously near the edge. The victim. His movements were erratic, almost as if he was waiting for something or someone.
He was a young man, barely out of his teens, with a future that should have been bright and full of promise. Dressed in jeans and a faded blue shirt, he looked like any other teenager, blending into the urban landscape. His face, caught in the harsh glare of the platform lights, revealed a story of its own. It was etched with a fear Riya knew was not just about being alone. There was something deeper, more sinister lurking behind those eyes.
The official report called it a suicide, open and shut case. But Riya couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. But Riya had seen something in the victim's eyes, a glimmer of desperation that didn't align with the narrative, a flicker of something that didn't sit right with the suicide narrative. She knew she had to dig deeper, to uncover the truth hidden beneath the surface. She rewound the footage, her gaze fixed on the shadows dancing near the tunnel entrance. There, just for a fleeting second, a figure materialized from the darkness. Tall, shrouded in a hooded jacket, the figure seemed to melt back into the shadows as quickly as it had appeared. Riya leaned closer, her pulse quickening. The figure was gone, vanished without a trace. She rewound again, this time focusing on the victim. As the hooded figure emerged, the victim's head snapped up, his eyes widening in terror. He stumbled back, as if shoved, his arms flailing wildly as he lost his balance and disappeared from view. The scream, echoing through the empty station, sent chills down Riya's spine. Riya visited the morgue the next morning. The air was thick with the scent of antiseptic and something more sinister. The dim lighting cast long shadows, making the place feel even more eerie. The victim's belongings lay untouched in a plastic bag. Among the items were a wallet, keys, and a crumpled piece of paper. Each item seemed to tell a story, a fragment of a life abruptly ended. She sifted through them, her fingers closing around a small rectangular object, a metro ticket. It felt out of place, almost too ordinary amidst the chaos of the other evidence. It was dated for the same day, but the timestamp read 2:47 a.m. The precision of the time struck her as odd, almost as if it was a clue left intentionally. 10 minutes after the victim's death. The timeline didn't add up, and it gnawed at her, a puzzle piece that refused to fit. Back in the station's security room, she scrolled through hours of footage. The dim glow of the monitors was the only light, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Just as she was about to give up, she saw him. Her heart skipped a beat, and she leaned in closer, her eyes narrowing in disbelief. The hooded figure, identical in every way to the victim, walking through the station entrance at 2:45 a.m. The resemblance was uncanny, almost as if she was seeing a ghost. He moved with an unnatural stillness, his head held at an odd angle, his eyes fixed and unblinking. Riya's blood ran cold. The figure's presence was haunting, a shadow that seemed to defy logic. This was no ordinary case. The lines between reality and the supernatural blurred, leaving Riya with more questions than answers. She knew she was on the brink of uncovering something far more sinister than she had ever imagined. Days turned into nights. Riya became a ghost, haunting the metro lines, following whispers and shadows. The hooded figure appeared again and again, always at the edge of the frame, always just out of reach. Each time, the same unsettling observation. The figure never blinked. It moved like a puppet, its limbs stiff and unnatural. The case was driving her to the brink. The lack of sleep, the constant pressure, the sheer impossibility of it all. And yet something kept her going. A gut feeling, an intuition honed over years on the force, told her that this case, this impossible case, held the key to something bigger, something darker. The break came unexpectedly. A tip from an informant led her to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The informant spoke of strange experiments, of whispers of bringing back the dead. Riya knew it was a long shot, but she had to follow every lead. The warehouse was dark, the air thick with the smell of dust and decay. She moved cautiously, her hand hovering near her holster. As she rounded a corner, she saw them. Dozens of figures, all identical to the victim, stood motionless in the dim light. They turned their heads in unison, their unblinking eyes fixed on her. A voice boomed from the shadows, echoing through the vast space. The sound was both commanding and eerie, sending shivers down the spine of anyone who heard it. A man stepped into the light, his face hidden in the shadows of a hood. His presence was imposing, and his movements deliberate, as if he was in complete control of the situation. He spoke of a world without death, of a future where life and death were mere playthings. His words were filled with a chilling conviction, painting a picture of a reality that defied the natural order. He raised his hand, and the figures around him began to advance. Their synchronized movements were almost mechanical, as if they were puppets controlled by an unseen force. Suddenly, a deafening explosion ripped through the warehouse. The force of the blast was overwhelming, shaking the very foundations of the building. Flames erupted, engulfing everything in sight. The fire spread with a ferocity that seemed almost unnatural, consuming the warehouse in a matter of moments. Riya, momentarily blinded by the blast, stumbled back, her ears ringing. The chaos around her was disorienting, and she struggled to regain her bearings. When she could see again, the warehouse was an inferno, the figures gone. The once bustling space was now a scene of utter devastation. The man, the mastermind, had vanished. His disappearance was as sudden and mysterious as his appearance, leaving behind only questions and destruction. Riya had a sinking feeling this was not the end. The events of the night were just the beginning of something far more sinister. The echoes of his chilling ambition, of a world forever changed, lingered in the smoke-filled air. The scent of burning wood and metal was a stark reminder of the night's horrors. The chase was far from over. Riya knew she had to find answers, to uncover the truth behind the man's dark vision.
If your metro ride feels routine, think again. Some secrets lurk in places you never imagined. Aryan hesitated, staring at his phone's screen. An unknown number glowed in the darkness. He answered, "Who is this?" A distorted voice crackled. "You shouldn't have followed him." Riya stiffened. "Followed who? The man at the cemetery?" A chilling chuckle echoed. "He isn't a man. Not anymore." Aryan gripped the phone tighter. "Then what is he?" the caller whispered. "The last passenger." The call cut off. Riya and Aryan exchanged a look. The words sent a shiver down her spine. They rushed back to HQ, diving into every record on Vijay Saxena. His autopsy said drowning, but his metro card showed activity at platform 13. Only 12 platforms existed. They rushed to the metro, discovering a hidden staircase to platform 13. Riya swallowed hard. "I think we found where our last passenger went." Aryan exhaled. "Something tells me we won't like what we find." They took the first.
Riya and Aryan ventured deeper into the deserted metro tunnel. Dust lay thick on the tracks, shadows danced on the grimy walls. The air hung heavy, silent except for the drip-drip of water. They reached a boarded-up section. A rusty sign creaked above. Platform 13. "Do you think it's here?" Riya whispered, her voice trembling. Aryan, ever the skeptic, just shrugged. He pulled a crowbar from his backpack and pried loose the rotting boards. A gust of icy air hit them, sending shivers down their spines. The platform was eerily pristine. No dust, no cobwebs, just gleaming white tiles and flickering gas lamps. A clock on the wall ticked backwards. Riya felt a cold dread creep up her neck. This place felt wrong, out of time. Aryan, however, seemed unfazed. He stepped onto the platform, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Hello?" His voice echoed strangely in the stillness. Only silence answered him. Riya followed cautiously, her hand gripping his arm. The air grew colder, the silence deeper. She felt a presence unseen but watching. A crumpled newspaper lay on a bench, dated that very day. Riya picked it up, her fingers tingling. Beside it sat a half-eaten packet of biscuits. Someone had been here recently. But who? And where were they now? A chill wind swept through the platform, rustling the newspaper in her hands. Her eyes fell on a glint of metal beneath the bench. A metro card lay discarded, its surface scratched and worn. A name was etched on the back in a spidery hand, Vijay Saxena. A wave of dizziness washed over Riya. Vijay Saxena, the missing journalist who had vanished without a trace a year ago? It couldn't be. Section 4, Ghost Train. A low rumble echoed through the tunnel. Headlights pierced the darkness, blindingly bright. A train screeched to a halt before them, its carriages ancient and ghostly. The doors hissed open, revealing an empty interior, lit by flickering gas lamps. A shiver ran down Riya's spine. This was no ordinary train. "We need to leave," she whispered, pulling at Aryan's arm. But he seemed transfixed, drawn to the train by some invisible force. He stepped inside, his silhouette swallowed by the darkness. "Aryan, no!" Riya cried out, but it was too late. The doors slammed shut with a final resonant clang. Section 5, Vanishing Act. Panic surged through Riya. She hammered on the train doors, but they wouldn't budge. The train lurched forward, gathering speed with unnatural swiftness. Riya watched in horror as it sped away, disappearing into the black maw of the tunnel. She was alone, abandoned on the silent platform. Then she saw him. A figure materialized from the shadows, tall and gaunt, his face etched with sadness. He held a worn journalist's notepad in his hand. Vijay Saxena? Riya breathed, fear giving way to a strange understanding. He nodded slowly, then turned and walked towards the edge of the platform, dissolving into thin air. Riya stumbled back, her mind reeling. Was she going mad? Or had she just witnessed the impossible? The only evidence of her experience, the Metro card, lay cold in her hand.